project? Do you think, like Mark Carney, there needs to be consensus to go forward with these big nation-building projects?
No, we've got to get it done. We need a pipe. At the end of the day, if you wait till everybody agrees on everything, nothing will happen.
Pierre Poilievre brilliantly called out Mark Carney's sneaky little plan to ensure that he won't actually get anything done. He's going to tell you he will, but no, he won't. The Liberals got roasted right to their face in the House of Commons today. It was quite funny to watch, not going to lie. And Danielle Smith laughed at the very obvious mainstream media spin that they are trying to do right now in order to craft a narrative. I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. Subscribe, follow, like, share, comment your thoughts down below.
One of the policies the Prime Minister campaigned on was building modular housing. That is a way to get more homes built faster. And we know that by removing barriers to internal trade in our country, we can get a modular housing industry going in our country. Exactly. That is one of the solutions to the housing crisis. I hope the members opposite will be constructive and support this important legislation.
Honourable member for York Durham.
Mr. Speaker, my generation refuses to live in a shipping container. Oxford Economics reports yesterday that Toronto's housing market ranks among the worst in the world for affordability. At the same time, mortgage delinquency rates in Toronto are higher than at any time during the pandemic. The financial burden is suffocating the next generation of homebuyers. And history has shown us, Mr. Speaker, if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. A budget is a plan, Mr. Speaker. So my question to the Prime Minister is, when will Canadians see one?
Now, we will get into Mark Carney and his response today about when a budget is coming, as well as Pierre Poilievre grilling him on that. But there's a number of things to take apart here. Number one, Freeland, remember how just a couple of months ago she was telling Canadians that, our economy is great. You guys are just in such a bad vibe session. Well, now she is straight up admitting that Canadians will never afford homes. I had this posted in a previous episode as well, where we had discussed that the average age in Ontario for a first-time home buyer is over the age of 40 now, which is just insane to think about. And the reason why Canadians can't afford homes, it's not because of Donald Trump. It's not because of anything other than Liberal policies and the Liberal government. So the solution that they're pushing, modular housing, does in fact benefit Brookfield Asset Management, who owns the Modular Group. But the real issues facing the housing sector are, one, mass immigration, tax burdens, zoning, and red tape. And every single one of those real issues has gone completely untouched because they don't actually plan on changing anything at all. And let's not forget that modular homes, while they can be privately owned, there's a couple big issues with that though too. It doesn't build equity at all. Modular units are often sat on leased land or government controlled plots. So you don't actually own the land. It's not real ownership. It's just renting that's kind of still branded as hope. And while they can be privately owned, what Freeland and Carney and the Liberal government is proposing, they want housing to be in government policy. That's why they're talking about this, right? So that is going to end up seeing these modular homes, such as the Modular Group, which are going to create projects to mass build homes that are government funded, corporately built, and also leased to residents instead of sold, because the government isn't a real estate agent, right? So if the government is involved in that, that's because they're leasing it to you. And I want you to just deeply consider the fact that if the private sector has no interest at all in building homes because the investment opportunities, the red tape, all of that stuff has made it impossible to do anything here. And the government, instead of removing some of that control, says, you know what, we're just going to take over home building for you. This isn't like a modular home that is then going to be a pathway towards home ownership, similar to how a condo may be in some cases. This is quite literally just government subsidized, government funded housing on government land that you do not own. Think about that. Why is that happening, and why do they want that to happen?
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals invited millions of migrants into Canada, knowing full well they didn't have the economic and social infrastructure to support them. Now Canada has a massive housing crisis. endless healthcare wait times, and countless Canadian youth without jobs. Newcomers themselves aren't to blame. It's the Liberals who misled everybody about Canada's capacity to absorb millions, especially under their government's economy-killing policies. Millions of people are now in Canada with expired or imminently expiring visas. How is the government going to ensure that they will leave?
Don't worry, guys. The Liberals are going to get rid of them, and they're really proud about this by introducing Bill C2/C3, which allows them to monitor your mail, open your mail, also request your data and information through online social media giants, as an example, without warrant, without cause for concern, and also without your knowledge, among many other things. Yeah, that's how they're going to really target all of these crazy things happening in the country.
I also express my deepest condolences to the late Mark Carney, and as someone, Mark Carney.
We may also want to express our deepest condolences to Mark Carney, though, because today he got ripped to shreds pretty darn good. Eee.
Less than half our maritime fleet and land vehicles are operational. More broadly, we're too reliant on the United States. And so for all those reasons, I'm announcing today that Canada will achieve NATO's 2% of GDP target this year, half a decade ahead of schedule, including by prioritizing made-in-Canada manufacturing and supply chains. We should no longer send 3/4 of our defense capital spending to America. We will invest in new submarines, aircraft, ships, armed vehicles, and artillery, as well as new radar, drones, and sensors to monitor the seafloor and the Arctic.
Oh, but wait, if you thought this was a remotely acceptable message, just have a listen to this.
Russia's barbaric invasion of Ukraine shattered previous assumptions of European post-Cold War security, leading to sharp reappraisals of the costs of collective responsibility, and underscoring how precious and precarious are international law, sovereignty, territorial integrity, and human rights. Disregarding these principles would not only betray our values, but also imperil our nation. When we stand up for territorial integrity, whether it's in Ukraine or West Bank and Gaza, we are also standing up for the territorial integrity of the Canadian Arctic.
I'm sorry. Huh? And he also posted this 7 hours ago where he writes, the Nova Music Festival exhibition tells the story of the brutal massacre carried out by the T-word entity Hamas on October 7th. Young Israeli revelers came together that day to dance and celebrate and were targeted by inconceivable violence. I came to witness accounts of the atrocities committed and hear directly from survivors and families of those murdered and taken hostage. We can't look away from this hate or from the rise in anti-Semitism we've seen in Canada since. We will fight to protect Jewish communities at home and advocate for long-term peace and security in the Middle East. And I'm like, great, yeah, that's a great step to take. But he literally just a few days ago said this.
I know that for many, myself included, these celebrations also bring sadness, evoked by the intolerable suffering around the world, including in Gaza. And the sadness I feel because of the hatred fueled by ignorance that is still a lived reality for far too many Muslim Canadians. The values of community, of generosity, and yes, of sacrifice. These are Muslim values. These are Canadian values.
This is an issue where you quite literally cannot play both sides. Like, you actually can't. It is so serious. It is so long-term. You can't play both sides here. And if you do play both sides, as Mark Carney has done in a matter of a few days, you are only going to make the Jewish community resent you and also the Muslim community resent you, those who are in support of what's going on there, at least, because not everybody is. But that's all that you're doing, is you're just going to push everybody away because they think you're a phony who stands for nothing. And honestly, that's a pretty good summary of Mark Carney thus far, is that he knows what he stands for, but he pretends like he stands for everything so that he gets votes and he wins public approval. And that is a ticking time bomb. I promise you that, which is why I'm actually quite relieved that we aren't going into an election right now, because we have a lot more of this to come. And boy, is that ever going to help the Conservative Party.
Decade of liberal cuts, mismanagement, and back office bureaucracy, of boondoggles, and wasted money on bungled projects. Our military has never been weaker. Now more than ever, we need a strong military that will reassert our sovereignty in the north, take back control of our Arctic waters. We need at least one, but probably two Arctic bases. We need fighter jets, Poseidon aircraft. We need 4 and not 2 icebreakers to bust up the ice and reassert that we are properly the ones that lay claim over our Arctic waters. We also need to fill the massive number of vacancies that have built up in our military after the last decade by increasing the dollars available to recruit and focusing the military on a warrior culture that actually inspires people to want to join again. All of this is going to take money, and that's why we support getting back to the 2% target as soon as possible. And we will support additional money for our military. That's why we're calling on the government to bring in a budget, because all of this will require a budget that not only puts this money forward, clearly identifies where it comes from, but cuts waste in bureaucracy, consultants, foreign aid, corporate welfare, and other areas, so that the necessary increase in the military does not come as an inflationary burden on the backs of our Canadian taxpayers, who've been suffering for far too long.
Now, what about that budget, though, right? Well, here's what Mark Carney had to say about it.
On fiscal matters, are you still expecting the deficit for this year to be at $62 billion?
Well, look, the deficit, we'll give an update of the outlook for the deficit in due course. That will take into account the economic conditions, decisions such as today, progress we're making on spending reductions as well. So today's not the day for a fiscal update.
What Mark Carney did today, though, in announcing that 2% NATO target that's going to be met allegedly by the end of the year, which makes absolutely no sense to me, because if you try to just run the numbers, there's actually no way that can happen. But what he did there was incredibly strategic, in that he refuses to release a budget in which other countries could see what it is that Canada's working with and how bad we are actually doing. And then he also promised the 2% target meeting ahead of the NATO meetings. And so I think that he did that all incredibly strategically so that he can go into these NATO meetings knowing that there's no way Canada will ever do this, but then say, oh, well, no, we announced it. We're going to be meeting it. For sure we will. And you guys, you don't have any budgets or any monetary policy to look at to see how we're actually doing. Yeah, because I hid that from you. So it seems almost like Mark Carney is worse than Justin Trudeau.
On another topic then, pipelines, I'm wondering, what would you do if there's a situation where Alberta and BC, for example, are butting heads about a project? Do you think, like Mark Carney, there needs to be consensus to go forward with these big nation-building projects?
No, we've got to get it done. We need a pipe. At the end of the day, if you wait till everybody agrees on everything, nothing will happen. You're never going to get everybody to agree on every single project.
And that is precisely why Mark Carney did that, because he knows that not everybody is going to agree. He knows that the easiest routes to get to either port are going to be blocked by a province. They're going to be blocked by at least one Indigenous community. He knows that. And that then allows him to continue doing exactly what he wants and completely clean his hands of any wrongdoing, even though federal projects actually don't need consensus at all. And it's the federal government's job to make sure that they get built. And it's the provincial government's job to make sure that provincial projects go ahead. But yep.
And bottom line is we're giving 90% of our oil and 100% of our gas to the Americans at enormous price discounts. This is costing us tens of billions of dollars every single year, to the exclusive benefit of American refineries and commodity traders who are able to take our product, bid up the price by $15 and sell it on the world stage, and do that literally about 1 billion times a year. And that is insane. So we can't wait any longer. We have to get things done, and it's going to take some backbone.
While Mark Carney may not have much of a backbone, as demonstrated quite clearly in today's episode on various topics, Danielle Smith certainly does. Take a listen to Vashi Capello's saying things about Alberta Oil and their plans. And, well, doesn't that, kind of not make any sense at all? And just how brilliantly Danielle Smith responds.
You have pitched sort of this grand bargain, right? Get the pipeline built. Some of that $22 billion that you referenced could be used to help support the development of that project. There's already numerous tax credits at the provincial and federal level in place that would help develop that project as well. Why are you prepared to give more money that could go to hospitals, that could go to roads, that could go to education? Why are you prepared to send more money to oil companies that are making record profits? Why do we keep having to help them do the right thing?
Well, because I think when the Pathways project came forward, it's all cost with no additional revenue associated with it. That's why I think coupling it with a new pipeline where you can get 1 million barrels a day more to market, that actually becomes the revenue stream that allows for a better partnership with industry and a better cost sharing. So that's why I think those two projects going forward in tandem are really important to address the concerns that matter to the Prime Minister around having significant emissions reduction, which has already been identified by the industry, but also creating a new revenue stream and new markets.
And I take your point on that change in sentiment and looking for new markets. I would point out that TMX has already had a big impact on that. Total crude oil movements from Alberta to BC more than tripled from May to December from the same 8-month period in 2023. It's a 367.4% increase.
I am so sick and tired of that talking point, because to me, it is irrelevant. It is irrelevant to me that, oh, well, you guys produced more last year, than you did the year prior. I don't care. I don't, because guess what? It's not enough. It's not at capacity. We're not overproducing. We're not sitting here like we're in the UAE. We could be, but no, we're not doing that, are we? Because of government policies, federal regulations, bureaucracy, red tape, how expensive it is to live here, the ridiculous taxes that fluctuate every 6 months when a new ideology gets elected into power, or a new minister is now the head of that portfolio who's also ideologically driven. It's just outrageous to me to say that, because if that was actually a win, if that was actually an accomplishment, Canadians would not be in the position that we are right now, period. So stop saying that, because it's irrelevant. It's useless. It's a useless talking point.
One of the factors that contributes to the sort of revenue cost calculation of carbon capture is the industrial price on carbon. You freezing it has had a negative impact on that calculation. Are you going to unfreeze it?
I have to tell you, it was going up at too high a rate. And if it kept on going up at this rate to $170 by 2030, there would be no investment happening in Alberta.
That's the point, right? You made the pitch initially that it could build the roads, build the hospitals, build the schools, and now it's instead going to go to oil companies.
Well, 100% of zero is zero, Vashi. Like, if you don't end up with production and you don't end up with revenue, there's nothing to divvy up. You have to begin with production. You have to create the environment where energy companies feel like they can get product to market and they can make money at it, and then we all benefit. But at the moment, we've had a situation where we've had cancellation of pipelines. The cancellation of Energy East, of Keystone, of Northern Gateway. That would have generated 2.5 million barrels a day more of production than we have right now, which would have been $55 billion of revenue that we don't have to talk about who ends up getting what share. I don't want that situation to continue. We have to get these projects built, and then we can talk about what the relative amount is that should go to different levels of government, First Nations, the company itself. But I can tell you for certain, if none of these projects get off the ground, then we'll be in the same position that we have been for the last 10 years, watching missed opportunity go by.
I just quickly point out, according to Statistics Canada, for the 4th consecutive year, production of crude oil and equivalent projects reached a record high in 2024, up 4.3% from 2023. I do really quickly want to turn to asking you.
I just want to say we have an aspiration to double our production, and we could have been at already probably 6 to 7 to 8 million barrels a day. That's what I'm looking at. And why should we hold ourselves back when we know the world wants our products? This is the time for us to build them.
Yeah, I guess I'm just countering the idea that things are destitute or that nothing is being developed or production is extremely capped. Like, the numbers bear out a different story. They're not perhaps as high as you and other people in the province or maybe even across the country want to see, but they're not going down.
Vashi, we've got the lowest living standards in the world. Like, we're falling behind all the OECD countries in productivity growth and standard of living growth. And that's because these are the kind of projects that consistently fail and do not get built. So we can't sugarcoat that. That is a reality. If we want to be a rich country and we want to be able to keep up with our neighbors in growth, we've got to build things. We've got to dig things out of the ground. We've got to get products to market. We can't keep on borrowing and borrowing and borrowing and watching the kind of situation that we've seen over the last 10 years develop. That is not what Albertans want. It's not what Canadians want. And so I think there needs to be a complete attitude adjustment about all of these projects, because we've lost a lot of opportunity across the board, across the country.
That reminds me of that quote. It goes something like, if you let people push you, they will push you and push you and push you until you fall off a cliff. So you need to take a different direction. You need to push back. You need to stand your ground, and you need to have a backbone. You need to have a spine. And I think there are a lot of Canadians who are feeling pretty defeated after the last election, but every single day that we have with more of this Liberal government insanity in Canada, I really do believe is just one more day of hope that we are that much closer to reversing course on all of this, similar to other nations that underwent the same type of ideological World Economic Forum takeover. I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Be sure to like, comment, share, and also give us a follow on other social media platforms as well. And subscribe also if you're on YouTube. I'll talk to you tomorrow.